Good evening, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to apologize. We had some audio issues on this episode, but fortunately, it's only impacting my end, and our guest tonight is far more interesting to listen to than me. Tonight, we're actually talking to one of my first ever mentors in law, and a man full of wisdom. Please welcome Mr. John Newnham in an episode I've called Don't Be Afraid of Your Character. A little bit about who you are and what you do.
If we're truly lawyers, I'm a nerd.
Wasn't very planned.
Who are you?
That's a big question, Zach.
Put this in the too hard basket.
I swear a bit.
Why do you think everybody hates lawyers?
Lawyers out there, if you're listening,
There's no work-life balance.
But I have faith.
Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So let's start with a little bit about who you are and what you do. Let's start generally.
Right. Well, I'm now a consultant in the firm of Newnham's. And as a matter of fact, in 3 weeks' time, I'll be 60 years a practicing solicitor. My father commenced practice in 1929. He was a sole practitioner until after the war. He then was joined by my uncle, and they worked together until 1966, when I was admitted in 65, and my father and I then, branched out on our own. We started again, or he started again, as a consultant to me, and I started my own practice with one article clerk, one receptionist and one secretary. And away I went. And now I'm a consultant to a firm that has 7 solicitors, etc. A lot of people, as you well know.
So I take it that your father, he wanted to throw you on the deep end, and you're going to start your career. I'm going to consult you. You'll have one clerk, and that's it. You're just going to have to figure out the rest by yourself.
Exactly. He had a branch office in Newtown, and that's where he started working. In 1929, he was born and bred in Newtown. As a matter of fact, he became the second last mayor of Newtown from 32 to 37. So we always had a branch office in Newtown, and when Dad and I started again, he started again, because my uncle took all our clients when they broke up. It was an amicable breakup. It wasn't a disputed one, and we had feeding from Newtown, as well as. We just started. It was an experience. But in those days you could do it. I don't think you could do it today. It's just, you've got to have too much money to start a practice, It's just, I started with $400, I think. It was crazy, But they were the days. Totally different from what it is today, We got a range of work. We had probate work, conveyancing work, third-party work, succession work. So we were a general practice, and divorce work we had a little bit. My uncle took all that. And when we started, when I was an article clerk, we were shunned from doing any family law work because it was cruelty and adultery and all, fault. And we as young blokes, I think we were protected from all of that sleaziness. So when I started, I didn't know much about family law, but that's another story, So
It's an interesting story, that one, how family law, as we recognize it professionally, but also socially, has really changed reputationally. I believe it was in the mid-70s. Was it the family law?
Started 1975.
1975.
Yeah. Well, it was enacted in 75. It really started in 76. Yeah.
And that completely reframed the culture of divorce and separating families.
Totally. Before then, you couldn't get a divorce unless you had solved all your problems, such as property settlement, children, all of that. You did it in one petition, and if that petition was defended on one issue, the whole petition then went into a defended list and you waited. So you couldn't get divorced, and that's under the new Act. They separated divorce from every other issue, and people could get divorced and there was no fault. But the interesting part about it now is that fault is creeping back into it, because they're talking about domestic violence being an issue in property settlements today, which until recently wasn't even thought of, you know. So it's the evolvement of law, and you know, so a lot's changed in family law. I wasn't really interested in family law. I was interested in doing anything and everything to earn a dollar, but family law didn't interest me. But I went and sought some advice from a gentleman, a barrister called Basil Hogan, who turned out to be a family law judge ultimately. And I think he took a liking to me, and he started sending me work in family law, and here I am. Our firm now has, 70% family law. You know, a lot of young people say today, oh, I want to be specialised in this and I want to specialise in that. And you don't know, you know. You go down a path and something's going to happen, and it'll change your life. You'll go down one, you'll come to a branch and away you go in one direction, and that's what happened to me. You know, I wasn't interested initially I was interested in doing family law to earn a dollar, but I wasn't interested in specialising in it. And before I knew it, I was getting this work that was being recommended to me, and there I was in family law.
On the topic of skills and things that you've held very dear to your heart during your professional career, what would you say, in all your wisdom and all your experience, are some of the skills that juniors nowadays maybe don't have as well developed as you did once upon a time?
Well, I think the mentoring aspect of the law is not there today. There's two sides of the law. There's the theory and there's the practice. Okay, you go to university, you learn the theory. When I was an article clerk, I learned the practice whilst I was learning the theory. So I was in a solicitor's office, we started lectures at 8 o'clock in the morning, finished at 10, and of course it was all in the city rather than at uni, at the University of Sydney, which was the only uni doing it at that time. And 8 to 10 generally, or each day of the week. Then we went to work. Then at 4 we went back to uni and did lectures from 4 to 6, generally each day. So we were blending in with the practical side of law as well as the theoretical side of law. And for example, in my articles, I was articled to my uncle, and the first 9 months of our 4-year term of articles, we did runaround work, filing in the Supreme Court, District Court, Family Court, or Matrimonial Causes Jurisdiction as it then was, and we got to meet other people doing the law, and particularly in the public service. There were a lot of guys were studying law in the public service, and they turned out to be judges. And they were filing clerks, and you met them doing that runaround work. And then we came into the office, and for 3 years we did conveyancings, we did probate under supervision, answered phones, talked to people, interviewed clients, or sat in on interviews of clients. That doesn't happen today, you know, and that's the sad part, in my opinion. That's the sad part of the law. I think we, as lawyers, have a responsibility to teach the youth and to teach them little things that they don't learn at law school. Like I've told you a few things about your appearance in court and that sort of stuff. So that's the thing that I find very, very sad today. I don't want to decry the College of Law.
I think just about everyone is nowadays. So.
But they play games over there. You know, they don't. The lecturers will probably ring me up and blast me for saying this, but you don't come in contact with guys like me, and you know, and who might shout at you over the phone because you said something silly to me or whatever. I'm being facetious when I say this, but there's not that connection. And I find that very sad, because I think the profession has a responsibility to teach its young students and young lawyers things that, you know, for example, I'll give you an example. If you're at the bar table today and you want an adjournment, in my day, there were 6 or 7 people. You were admitted last week or 2. You sat there and you were the last to stand up and mention, because everybody had a seniority. And if you wanted to mention a matter and get away, you had to ask everybody at the bar table whether you could mention the matter, because you were the junior person, and it went up the list. Today, kids run in, stand up, "Oh, can I mention the matter?" You know, and I'm there sitting at the bar table and say, "You haven't asked me." You know, and well, I've got to get somewhere else. What about me? I might have to go somewhere else. But today, there's none of that etiquette. You know, you don't leave the bar table unattended. Today, you watch, everybody leaves the bar table unattended. There's no one there, you know. Or, unfortunately, some of the judges say today, "You can go, Mr Newnham." Oh, well, no, sir, I don't want to go. The bar table will be unattended. "Oh, it's all right, no, I'll stay here. I was taught to stay here." That sort of thing. Now, you don't learn that at the College of Law. You don't learn that at law school. You learn it with guys like me. So that's just one little example. There are many, you know, and I find it sad that we don't have. I would love to have articles back. I really would, because as you know, I like talking to young lawyers. I like showing them principles of law that they might not come across at the law school. But that's just me.
Why do you think that mentoring among senior lawyers might not be as well regarded or considered as it might have been once upon a time?
Well, it wasn't. Not everyone in my day was a good mentor. A lot of lawyers, and this is why I think the article clerk system fell apart, because a lot of lawyers just treated the students as delivery boys. They didn't teach them, you know. And that's the sad thing about it. I think the senior lawyers, or the lawyers, were to blame in not promoting and keeping the article clerkship going. So, but I don't think it'll ever come back. You know, it's too far gone. But it was certainly an education with me.
Given you mentioned that article clerkships haven't really been around for quite some time now, do you mind actually elaborating on what article clerkships looked like? You're a uni student. What did it look like day to day?
Well, you had a master solicitor, and you signed articles, and you went to the prothonotory of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and he interviewed you and your master solicitor, and you signed your articles with your master solicitor. I can't even remember what they said today, but you signed articles, you were committed. I don't even know what the articles said. I think the master solicitor promised to educate you, and you promised to be faithful to him, etc., etc. But other than that, it was then your master solicitor that had to give you work or guide you along the lines and whatever. on a day-to-day basis. And so I was given a conveyance, and we were taught conveyancing at the law school. They don't teach that sort of thing. We learned what a contract of sale was, and each sentence in a contract of sale. They aren't as big today as they are today, but we knew what a contract was. We knew how to do a conveyance. Our master solicitor taught us that, how to do a probate, and probates were a little bit more complicated in getting probate. Easier to get probate, but harder to collect assets and things like that than it is today. But you know, you were under the guidance of your master solicitor every day, and what he gave you was up to him. But a good master solicitor would give you a whole lot of various work and guide you.
On the topic of master solicitors and these mentor-mentee kind of roles, do you have a couple stories or memories from great moments that you had when you were a mentee once upon a time, looking up towards your mentors?
I had a few. My dad was a very, very good advocate, and he spent a lot of time in court, and he was renowned as a good landlord and tenant expert in those days, because the Landlord and Tenant Act was there, that it was very difficult to get tenants out of properties.
That was after World War II, right? Yeah.
After World War II, and between then and around about 1957, you couldn't evict a tenant from a property without having good grounds. So my dad developed that, and in one particular case, if you didn't like the results, which was always in the lower courts, these tenancy matters were in the lower courts, the local courts, and if you wanted to appeal, you could only appeal on a point of law, but it went to the Supreme Court by way of stated case. Well, my dad had this little widow that had she and her sister ran a private nursing home up in the centre of Parramatta, and she let it out to a lady that they thought was just renting out boarding rooms, and it turned out that she was running a brothel. So
private rooms in some sense. She wasn't lying. She was maybe cloaking the story a little bit.
So Mrs. McTiernan and the widow came to Dad, and he got an order for the tenant to go, and the tenant appealed by way of stated case to the Supreme Court. And in those days, my dad would then pass it on to me. This is when I was an article clerk, and he briefed David Yeldham. David Yeldham ended up being a Supreme Court judge, but that was in his youth, and so I just did what my dad told me and whatever. Then one day there's a knock on the door, or the receptionist rings and says, "Oh, Mr. McTiernan's here," and I said, "He hasn't got an appointment, whoever he is." He said, it's about the case that your dad did. And I said, "Oh, well, I'll see him." And in walks this sprightly gentleman with a morning suit, Homburg hat, cane, and he starts asking me questions about the law. And look, I'm an article clerk. I'm saying, who is this guy? And thank goodness, in comes my dad then at the moment. And Sir Edward, how are you? And it was Sir Edward McTiernan, the High Court judge. I don't think in any other law firm a High Court judge could get through the partners to the article clerk in one fell swoop. So there was that was quite an experience for me.
I've got a tangent I'd like to go down. You mentioned Sir Edward coming in with his cane and his hat on, and it reminded me of something you told me once upon a time, how the law used to be filled with a bunch of characters, and it's it's not quite the same anymore.
No.
Why do you think that might be?
I don't know. I think people are too scared today to say, to say something that might be off the top of their head. You know, I think I've got to follow convention. And these guys used, in the old days, you know, another one as an article clerk, I was sent up to Mr Clive Everett, QC at that, yeah. And he said, Newnham, carry him a bag, which was the red bag, and we were going to court. So I carried the red bag. It was a bit light. And we went to court, and the old Supreme Court building, and out we came, and it was raining. And he said, give me the bag, Newnham. And so I gave him the bag, and here I thought I was carrying books and things for this case, and we'd finished the case, and he grabs the bag and he opens the bag and pulls out some galoshes that he put over his shoes because it was raining. And here I was, I thought, oh, I'm doing a marvellous job here carrying his books to court, and it turned out that I was carrying with his galoshes, you know. But he was a character, you know. And there was another QC, Jack Cassidy. He was renowned for having a glass or two of champagne before he went to court every morning. You know, and
Loosen up the shoulders.
yeah. And there was a guy, Roddy Marr. You went into his room and it was just covered with books, and bright lawyer, fantastic lawyer, you know. But here, scattered everywhere, briefs and everything, you know. And these guys were, you know, characters. They were, and it's sad to say, you know, the judges might ring me up and tell me and blast me for saying this, or senior counsel, but there aren't that many characters today, you know. It's sad.
Do you think there's still space for characters?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think what makes the profession. You know, how boring would it be if you didn't have guys wandering around yelling and screaming in the corridors of the courts? I think that's part of the fun of it all, you know, and the wit from the bar table. You know, I think that's great too.
There's something we touched on a little bit at the start of our conversation that I'd love to revisit. I think there's a lot of interest there. It was about the sort of change in the culture of marriage and relationships through law. What is your experience about how marriage has sort of changed, I guess, pre-1975 to post-1975?
Well, I think there was more emphasis in the old days because you had to have grounds for divorce. Mm-hmm. I think people took marriage more seriously. Mm. And I think with this no-fault legislation, I think people look at it these days as, oh, well, it's an experiment. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, well, I can get out of it and whatever. Talk to me about how many people today take their vows at marriage. Only people that go to church. Do the marriage celebrants do vows? I don't think so. I could be wrong. I think the family unit today is declining, for want of a better word. I think there are a number of grounds for that. I think the parents today have to work. The both of them have to work, whereas when I was married to my dear wife 54 years ago, I said to her, and she was one of the first two programmers. There were only two computers in Sydney at the time that I married my wife. One was at the AMP and one was at NRMA. And my wife worked for both of them. and the computer was as big as this studio, if not bigger. Now I've got a microchip. I mean, but I said to my wife, "Do you want to work?" And she said, "Not if I have to." And she works in other ways. I mean, and unfortunately, and this is where the family law, it falls down, is the family unit right from the word start, right from the start. It's just there are pressures against the family being a unit. The two parents go out and work. The young kids go into childcare. And there's no sense of family, in my opinion. People will shout me down.
Just a lot of outsourcing responsibility.
Yeah, and where's that connection that should, right from the word go, with a little baby, a 1-year-old going to childcare. I just find that, that is so sad to me. And there are all these pressures against the family. Morality. Where's morality today? What's today? No one gives a damn. I think it's very sad. But I have faith in the youth. I really do.
I really like the fact that you said you still have faith in the young people.
I do.
I think it's all too common for a lot of people as they sort of get older and they see the world change and they see some things maybe going in the wrong direction to get pessimistic and bitter and senile. Where do you find your capacity to still have faith in the youth? Where does that come from?
From me talking to the youth. From me talking to the young kids in the office today, and you, and I've got an interest in 3 young blokes that are now in their 20s, and they're all doing well, and I talk to them about their life. But the one problem today, and I'm not political. Well, I have my beliefs in politics, but I will not ram my political beliefs down anybody's throat. But when I did law, and when my father started, he was the son of a railway guard. Now he got a scholarship. He got a scholarship to go to Fort Street Boys High, and then he got a Commonwealth scholarship to go to the University of Sydney, and he made $1 for himself. Irrespective of my father's wealth, I got a Commonwealth scholarship. I went to university free of charge. The youth today, where are they today? They come out of university owing $60,000. Absolutely ridiculous. Why can't we educate the youth of today and not have them have a burden right from the word go? Put money, put efforts behind your youth. Whether that works or not, I don't know. I don't know how good our little podcast will go.
We'll see what the ripples of this conversation can do.
I warn you, you might know what I might say.
There was a couple more questions I had for you. You've been very generous with your time, and I don't want to take too much.
I've got plenty of time.
We talked about changes in the culture of marriage and relationships, sort of in a zoomed out cultural sense. I would love to zoom in a little bit more. And you said you've been married for 54 years. What is working in family law, seeing relationships breaking every single day? What has that taught you about your own relationship? And
You've got to talk to each other. You've got a lot of divorces happen when the children are in their teens or just about to go off the hands of the parents. And what's happened is, here's Dad working his butt off, going to work, working away, and here's Mum with the children running to and from school. Where do they get time to talk to each other? Where do they put their relationship before the relationship of work, and the relationship of children. It is important that you keep your relationship going, like it went at the start, above all else. And you will have your differences. You will have your little fights. Be big enough to say, I'm sorry, and make up. And do not get into temptation.
Strong will and stay disciplined.
Absolutely. And today, because there's no fault, people just think, oh well, there's a good young lady in the office, goodbye. And they throw it up in the air. It's so sad. It's so sad. And then they want to have a relationship with their children. The Family Law Act says, what's in the best interests of the children? Well, you and I know what's the best interests of the children, that they have a cohesive family unit. That's the best interests of children. They're just words, I hate getting involved in children's issues because they're just so difficult to solve, because there's so many other issues that are causing the problem of the issues relating to children. And I say to my clients, you're the parents of these children. Do you want some outsider who knows nothing about you or your children, that is a judge, making a decision on the future of your life and your children's lives? Is that what you want? When you think about it, the answer is obviously no. Well, start talking to each other. And people put their own selfish ideas before looking at what's best for their kids in the circumstances. Like, give him or her more time, or whatever. See how it works. None of this, you can't have him unless you haven't had a drink for 12 hours. Well, that's just ridiculous. How do you supervise that? It's just. But and the court system today is just too expensive. I just find it incredible that I talk to a client and I say, "Oh, make an appointment, blah blah blah." I talk to her for a minute, $55. Ridiculous.
I guess that's a fantastic tangent. Who knows if this will be your answer, but one thing I like to conclude every episode with is asking my guest, why do you think everybody hates lawyers?
Because they don't see the true role of the lawyer. The true role of the lawyer is to look after the interests of the client. And they think the lawyers make the law. The lawyers don't make the law. The politicians make the law. And I think it's the duty of the lawyer also to warn the client about the costs involved in the law. And the cost involved in the law plays an important part because everybody thinks that the lawyer is out to make money at their expense. And that's not what a true lawyer does. The true lawyer wants to get his client out of the law at the least possible cost.
Do you think we've got enough true lawyers out there at the moment?
Don't know. The last 10 years, I haven't gone to court, which I used to do every day. So I don't interact that much with lawyers today. I have more interaction with clients and young people like you. But I think there are a lot of lawyers out there that are just mundane. paper people. Where's your character? You know, I always say, and a classic illustration is years ago I went over to the I call it the College of Knowledge, but I went over there and I was doing a moot and plead guilty for a DUI or something like that. And they say the same thing, my client's married, got 4 kids, he needs his car to go to work, blah, 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 blah. Can you imagine a magistrate sitting there and listening to that 20 or 30 times a day, every day? It just, But if you say something that attracts the magistrate's attention, you get a better answer, in my opinion, because he's interested. So you've got to think of something that will attract his attention and not be the same as the guy that appeared before you. So be innovative, that's what I think. But there are not too many. But when I was going to court, I was looking at these young kids and same thing, they say the same thing. But also, as I've told you, if you stand up in court, you've got to know your brief, even if it's on an adjournment. Because if you get caught out by a judge and you don't know your brief, he'll rubbish you. So even if you're down there to get an adjournment, what's it about? Why are we getting an adjournment? Why did we get the adjournment in the first place? Were there directions made? Have I fulfilled the directions? You see kids stand up and say, "Oh, Mr. Brown sent me down." Well, tell me about the matter, says the judge. I don't know, it's Mr. Brown's matter. You're gone.
Go and get Mr. Brown then.
Yeah, go and get Mr. Brown. Bring him down here because I don't want to be talking to you and you can't answer the questions for me. So there are all of those things, but I have faith. I really do. But be innovative. Be yourself. Don't just sit there and be the same as everybody else. Create your own oratory, particularly if you're standing up in law. And if you want to go to the bar, be a solicitor for 5 years. Don't go straight to the bar. Learn about the practical side of the law before you even think about going to the bar.
Well, as I mentioned before, you've been very generous with your time, and I truly hope that there's going to be a couple young listeners, whether they be uni students or young lawyers, and I hope this has inspired them to not be afraid of their own character.
I hope so too, and I hope I've done something, some little thing to advance youth in the law.
Perfect. Thank you again for your time.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Okay.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Newnham. That was fantastic.
I don't know.
We
get a third opinion. What do you...